Hi everyone, it's Mariah Russell, and today I wanted to talk to you guys about what to do if you think that you witness or experience a consent violation at Colorado Burnal Equinox. And so the reason that we use the term consent violation versus stronger terms such as theft or rape or anything like that is because consent violation includes a whole lot more. And so I covered these yesterday, but consent violations include what happens if you or someone is being touched without their consent. We can talk about sex consent issues. What about if somebody is spraying you with essential oils that you don't want to be sprayed with, or rose water, or even just water spray? So physically gifting you something that you may not want. What if somebody is giving you substances that you don't consent to, whether knowingly or unknowingly? What if you are given that special brownie and you didn't want to eat that? And then photography is the other really big one. So we have all of these realms of things that are consent violations in our community. And so what do you do if you witness a consent violation? And the first question is going to be, everybody always worries, they're like, I don't want to be a tattletale, I don't want to be too harsh. And in the burning culture, we really do kind of encourage people to err on the side of being a little too sensitive, because it's better to have a conversation with someone, it's better to interject, it's better to check in with your friends, your community, your loved ones, and find out that everything is copacetic than to witness something and do nothing. And so what you want to do is really going to depend on the situation. So if you perceive a violation, you're just like, my spidey sense is off, something doesn't really look right, I don't know what's going on, but I can kind of tell that that doesn't look consensual. It may just be somebody's face, you may get a weird glance, you don't know what that is, but you're like, that's off, right? So the first thing, if you perceive a consent violation, is to get some more information. Ask some questions. Just walk up to somebody and be like, hey, is that person bothering you? Or what are you doing to that drink? Or does that person know that those are special brownies and not regular brownies? Or, hey, I know that person's a vegan and I'm pretty sure that food is not, and you're lying to them, whatever it is. So ask some things. And if your suspicions are confirmed, then you have a couple choices. If it's a minor thing, you feel comfortable, talk to the person. Maybe you don't feel comfortable talking to them, but their camp leader's there. So then have the camp lead go up and have a conversation. And as always, with any Burning Man event, and Colorado Burnal Equinox, we are a registered official Burning Man event, we have rangers. We have people with radios. So if you feel that this is out of your competency level to have a conversation and educate people, find a radio, find a ranger, talk to us. And the rangers may not be able to do anything. We may not choose to intervene. It may not be appropriate. We may just take some notes and say, okay, well, that was, maybe it was just like one of those, it's a little too long of a hug. Okay, so then there's a pattern. Oh, everybody keeps saying this about the same person, so now we want to have an intervention. Now we want to educate this person on how to integrate into our community better, right? And so the second scenario is, what if somebody directly reports something to you? They're like, hey, friend, this thing outside of my consent happened. So now you know for sure there's a consent violation. You know somebody took that picture without asking. You know somebody touched without asking. You know somebody did something outside of somebody's consent, right? And so the first thing is going to be just get some basic information, collect information and offer support, rather. If there's a medical issue, contact medical. Contact anyone with a radio, honestly. Contact medical, contact rangers, find somebody with a radio. Burnal Equinox is small enough that anyone with a radio is going to be able to get a hold of medical really fast. So we have a lot of people that are going to be carrying radios around. Call them, get medical support right away if that's needed. If they need emotional support and you can offer that, that's wonderful. If they need emotional support and you feel like it's a little bit outside of your skill set, then we have trained people that are willing and able and happy to assist in those situations. And then you also want to discuss reporting with the person that had the situation, because their consent was just violated. The last thing you want to do is, oh, well, this person violated your consent. Here, let me not even talk to you. Let me not even ask. I'm just going to call a whole bunch of people with radios and have everybody come over here to deal with your situation. Now you're continuing to not allow their voice to be heard, continuing to not allow them to express consent. So talk to them, see what they want to have happen. If they are okay with having whatever happened bump up to a larger level, then find the rangers and report. Find anyone with a radio and report. If it is a major consent violation, we're talking sexual assault, we're talking theft, things like that, they may not directly want to report, and it's still okay for you to come find somebody with a radio and have an anonymous conversation and say, I know this thing is going on, it doesn't make me feel comfortable, I don't feel comfortable disclosing the name of the person who this happened to because they did not consent to that, and I want to make sure that you guys know that things like this are happening at your event. And because we don't want these things to happen at our event. We want everyone to feel safe and happy and comfortable coming to our event. So please let us know if these things are going on. But again, this is where consent comes in. If somebody does not want to report, as an adult, that's their prerogative. And that's the hard thing. We're in Colorado. So the state of Colorado, especially as far as sexual assault is concerned, unless they are elderly, meaning over the age of 67, or they are disabled, and they are over the age of 18, if they do not want to report, then they legally don't have to report. We do like to know about it from an event standpoint, but we can never require anyone to report things to the police, and we won't ask them to. But we do like to, and that's the other thing to remember is, as event leads, we are not the police. So reporting to us is not the same as reporting to the police, but it is allowing us to monitor our own community guidelines and make this a safe place for our community members. So the third situation you might encounter is if you actually see an obvious consent violation in progress. So this is somebody's getting raped, somebody's getting assaulted, something major is being stolen, something like this is actually happening. And so, like responding to any emergency, so you'll learn this if you take first aid class, number one step, ask yourself, am I safe to even intervene? If you worry that you are safe to intervene, then don't, because now we have two people in trouble instead of just one. And so if you feel comfortable intervening, you feel safe intervening. So first of all, if you're safe, now you can assess, am I comfortable? If you're comfortable, go ahead and intervene up front, and then go ahead and report. If you don't feel safe, report immediately. If you do feel safe, but you don't feel comfortable intervening, find someone with a radio and let us know. And maybe before you find somebody with a radio, but you don't feel comfortable intervening, but there's a camp lead right by that is comfortable intervening, and it's safe for them to intervene, then talk to them first, because they may be closer. Radios get people there fast, but if you have somebody with an eyesight who is comfortable intervening, then go with the person who's within eyesight that can intervene right away. And so with all of these situations, the biggest thing is eventually letting us, as the people that are helping to volunteer to run this event, know what's going on. Because if we know what's going on, and we can do this immediately, this is another big thing with reporting, is immediacy. Because if we notice a pattern or a behavior, we can educate sooner. or we can address the problem immediately. If something happens and we find out about it a week after the event, a month after the event, at the event next year, then it's a lot harder for us to take action. It's a lot harder for us to educate, and it's a lot harder for the person to be educated, especially when I'm talking about educating, we're talking about smaller consent violations, but when you're being educated on that thing that you did a year ago that you don't really remember and you probably weren't sober when you did, it's going to be really hard to educate. And so that's the really important thing with all of this reporting, is that as soon as something happens, find someone with the radio, and as event leads, we can certainly help with this. And again, as event leads, we are happy to help you. As rangers, as medical, as any of the volunteers that are helping run this event, and Colorado Burnal Equinox, we have asked everybody to volunteer, so that includes everybody in our community. We are happy to intervene and volunteer, but it's also really great for the community to self-educate, the community to self-police. And I don't say police in a bad way, maybe self-monitor might be a better term. So it's like, how do we make sure that we are all mutually responsible for this and help to educate each other? Because sometimes it's gonna be heard a lot better. Like, hey bro, what you just did, completely inappropriate. Here, let's talk about boundaries and consent right now. It's probably going to be heard a lot better by certain people than, oh, now I have the rangers, I have the event leads, I have medical, I have somebody else that's coming to talk to me that I don't know, and why are they talking to me? So that's going to be the other really big thing about this, is while we do want to know that reporting part is important just for our track, for us to track and have a better idea of patterns, this is Burning Man events, this isn't Burning Man, but it is an official Burning Man regional. And we still have radical self-reliance. We still have communal effort. So how do you rely on yourself to educate your community? How do you use communal effort to educate your community and monitor your community? And then when something does need to be put on a list, just for tracking purposes, then report. And we're always happy to get those reports, and that immediacy of what can you do right there. And also, if a consent violation is happening and you can say something in the moment, say, hey, stop that right now, or hey, let's make a better decision right now, or whatever communication you're having, then there's that immediate feedback for the person, and you're going to be able to change what's happening. But if you wait to call someone with a radio, to get someone with a radio over to wherever you are, it could be minutes. It could be 20 minutes, depending on where you are, how long it takes you to find somebody with a radio, and for them to come to your situation and respond. And so that's one of the other things, is like, as a community, that's why this step one, I've said with any of these scenarios, is intervene to your comfort level. Have these conversations with your community. Empower yourselves. And then come to us as event leads, as rangers, etc. And we will deal with the bigger situations. But it takes so long for that to happen that whatever the scenario is probably over by the time we get there. We now can provide resources, we can provide emotional support, we can provide aftermath care. And how can we all be proactive to do this as a community, and then nobody feels picked on. And I think that's one of the really big things about consent and talking about consent, is when somebody gets told, you're wrong, you're bad, you're doing this thing, especially by somebody that they perceive to be an authority, then they kind of will shirk responsibility sometimes. They'll blame, they'll diminish, they'll not take accountability, they'll deny, because it hurts our ego. And if we can hear these same things from people we already have relationships with, that we already love and respect, then it's an education and a dialogue and something that's done by the community for the community, because we are all community leaders. And this also helps empower every single burner to call our friends out and say, hey, this is not how we behave. This is not appropriate. Or this is how we behave. This is appropriate. So I hope all of you guys that are coming to Burnal Equinox have an amazing time. I hope we don't have any consent violations to deal with. And if we do, follow the very simple steps of ask questions, get curious, see what you can do immediately, and then go ahead and report it so that we can either escalate it if need be or just keep track of the patterns. So thanks everyone for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you this weekend. Bye.